But first, today, Rudy Giuliani made his most blatant effort to make himself the candidate of September 11th. His campaign sending direct mailings to voters in Iowa and New Hampshire, which read, quote, after the worst attacks on U.S. soil, Rudy Giuliani went to work rebuilding New York City and faith in America. And now, for the first time, even a TV ad trying to play on that experience.
It's having held those positions in time of crisis. I've been tested in a way in which the American people can look to me. They're not going to find perfection, but they're going to find somebody who's dealt with crisis almost on a regular basis and has had results.
All right, in a moment, we are going to talk to a senior New York City firefighter about how he and a group of 9/11 families are challenging Giuliani's September 11th cred. Up to now, there's been some confusion about whether this issue would define the Giuliani candidacy, as evidenced by this piece put together by the folks over at Talking Points Memo.
I'm not talking about September 11th.
Not just September 11th.
Not September 11th.
Nothing to do with September 11th.
Nothing to do with September 11th. September 11th.
We'd be putting our head in the sand if we took September 11th out of the debate.
But in the 90s, there was an excuse for that. We didn't have September 11 happening to us.
He didn't have the knowledge of September 11th. He didn't know September 11 was coming. We don't mention September 11 nearly as much as people think.
All right, so the schizophrenia seems to be over. Now Giuliani seems to be out of the closet on 9/11. It looks like he will be the target of a group ready to do battle. Bottom line, the risks for Giuliani in running as the 9/11 candidate are already clear. And my guest is ready to lead the crusade to stop Giuliani from adopting 9/11 as his great achievement. New York Fire Department Deputy Chief Jim Riches is with us. So is Rachel Maddow of Air America and MSNBC political analyst Pat Buchanan. Thanks to all of you. Appreciate it. All right, Jim, let me start with you. How aggressively are you ready to go after Giuliani on this issue?
Well, we're going to follow him around, tell the true story of what happened on 9/11, because he seems to, he just wants to be Mr. 9/11, and he's declared himself Mr. 9/11, and I disagree with him for many reasons. But we will follow around and get the message out to all of America in every state to let them know that Rudy Giuliani is not Mr. 9/11. Right, he's not a hero. He ran that day.
Chief, look, you are still with the New York City Fire Department, so I got to ask you this. Do you think your views reflect that of, you can't reflect everyone's views, but do you think your views reflect the majority of New York City firefighters?
Well, I can tell you, I'm an active chief, and I work in the firehouse, and you'll hear a four-letter word after his name, and it's mostly, it's not hero. You can be sure of that. I mean, he failed us on many counts. He didn't have radios that worked that day. We had no unified command. We had no interagency drills. We didn't have OEM was incompetent and useless that day. We had self-evacuation. People were being told to stay in place right up until the second tower fell.
And is that his fault? I mean, the same way that some people would say he has no right to claim ownership of 9/11, I would ask you the reverse of that. Is he to blame for all of that?
He had all these commissioners in there who were incompetent, unqualified. He made a fireman the fire commissioner, a police officer the police commissioner, and he made an OEM director who was a fire dispatcher. And they made decisions that day that were fatal. They took off and they ran before either tower fell. Rudy Giuliani and all his future millionaires ran from the site and left. And they got that dust on them, and they made millions and millions of dollars talking about it. And yet we have all the firemen who got improper respirators for 2 months, and now everybody's sick, and 70% of them are dying because of him.
Let me play a little piece of sound, and this is what part of an anti-Giuliani ad, and I think if Chief Riches keeps this up, I think there's going to be more to come of this kind of ad. Let's listen.
If you were not with him 100% and didn't support him 100%, they would basically cut your throat.
It cost the lives of first responders that day because the command center was located at the World Trade Center.
There were 60 firefighters killed in the Marriott. There was 121 killed in the North Tower, and the rest were killed in the South Tower. What would have been different had that command center been operational? The death toll for firefighters would probably have been cut in half.
Chief, you ready to put together a political organization like the Swift Boat Group did and go after Giuliani on this?
Well, we're talking around, we're considering on options, and we know that TV made him a hero that day, and that we know that TV can take him down. When America hears the story of what happened, how he ran, and we have meetings with people, and we're going to discuss it.
You know, Pat Buchanan, let's talk politics here. Sure. I've got to think when you've got a current deputy chief of the New York City Fire Department using the sort of language that Chief Riches is using, that Giuliani's got to consider this long and hard and think that there may be some real risk here.
Well, I mean, I've just heard the chief now, and I haven't heard it before at that length and with that passion. I think the chief's going to be very effective, but there's no doubt what Rudy is doing. When you do direct mail, that's a piece of paper. It goes into everybody's home, every Republican in Iowa, Dan, and I can tell you, to most Americans who did watch on television, as I did, hour in and hour out, all day long for days, Rudy seemed to be at the center of things, and he seemed to be in command. And, of course, the Time magazine cover, and that's what the American people remember him of, and that's the most positive image he's got in the Republican Party, is Rudy as Mr. 9/11, the man who, in effect, held the city together. Now, the chief really contradicts that sharply, but there's no doubt that is the ace of trumps for Rudy Giuliani.
And Rachel, let's continue this on a sort of political front. And it seems to me that when you've got someone who is as high level as Deputy Chief Riches is, who is currently on the New York City Fire Department, willing to speak out as vociferously and aggressively as he is, not just saying 9/11 shouldn't just be his, but saying that Rudy Giuliani blew it on 9/11, that seems to me to be a major political liability.
Yeah, I'm with Pat in feeling like the words that we've heard tonight from Deputy Chief Riches are powerful and will be politically important. Also, the ad that you played, that is powerful and politically important. In the post-Rove era, every candidate knows that whatever they stake out as their political strength is going to be the thing on which they get hit. They're inviting scrutiny. And Rudy's got some real vulnerabilities on the 9/11 issue. When New York City firefighters are saying that you did wrong by them that day and in the lead up to it and you weren't prepared, and the reason everybody saw you running down that street covered in dust is because you had nowhere to go, that is because you put the command center in the wrong place. That's powerful stuff. It's also the same reason why the Bernie Kerik situation and the Judith Regan lawsuit about Bernie Kerik could be really important for Rudy.
Yep. All right. Deputy Chief Riches, thank you very much for taking the time to come on the program. We appreciate it.
Thank you, and you'll be seeing me on TV, I'm sure.
We will look forward to having you back.